To Queen Illustrial of Silverymoon, Lady of Hope of Lurua, does Drizzt Do'Urden send greetings. It is with mixed emotions that I deliver the report you requested less than a year ago. I understand that efforts to forge a strong union of the once independent city-states and kingdoms of the Moonlands and Delzoun that now make up the nation of Lurua are proceeding as well as one might reasonably hope. I admire both your patient resolve and your ability to lead a fractious council that numbers King Bruenor Battlehammer of Mithril Hall, King Harbrom of Citadel Adbar, and King Emerus Warcrown of Citadel Felbar among its dwarven contingent alone. Over the past year, I have collected a great number of reports from my contacts in the Underdark, a few of whom I know personally, but most of whom I know only through their missives. While all have been vouched for by one means or another, each may still speak with his or her own agenda and through the lens of personal experience. So I caution you to tread carefully when evaluating the truthfulness of the reports which follow. As we discussed, I have concentrated primarily on the cities of the night below, which one day might pose a threat to the surface world, and the often malevolent beings which roam the wilds of the Underdark. Some discussion on the environs of each city, as well as ways in and out, are included in my report as well. After being the recipient of several angry tirades by the 8th and 10th King of Mithril Hall regarding the actions, or inactions, as he sometimes grumbles of the Council of 12 Peers, I have gathered that there's more to your request than the need for an evaluation of the political, economic, and military trade-offs that bringing the Sverfneblin city of Blingdenstone into the alliance of Silverymoon would entail. Whispered tales hint of the dangers of the Faerim attempting to escape their prison beneath Anauroch, Lolth's faithful, and the ever-presence of the Mind Flayer development. It is a dangerous course you chart, and I pray for the Luck Maiden's favour in the tests you will face in the years to come. And so, to aid your understanding, dear lady, I will now speak of the Underdark as I have come to know it, as a world unto itself, vast, cunning, ancient, and endlessly patient. There are no shadows in the Underdark. Only after years on the surface have I come to understand the significance of that seemingly minute fact, the significance of the contrast between light and darkness. There are no shadows in the Underdark, no areas of mystery where only the imagination can go. What a marvelous thing is a shadow. I have seen my own silhouette walk under me as the sun rode high. I have seen a gopher grow to the size of a large bear, the light low behind him, spreading his ominous silhouette far across the ground. I have walked through the woods at twilight, my gaze alternating between lighter areas, catching the last rays of day, leafy greens slipping to grey, and darkening patches where only my mind's eye could go. Might a monster be there, or an orc, or a goblin, or might a hidden treasure, as magnificent as a lost enchanted sword, or as simple as a fox's den, lay within the sheltering gloom. When I walk the woods at twilight, my imagination walks beside me, heightens my senses, opens my mind to any possibility. But there are no shadows in the Underdark, and no room for fanciful imagination. All, everywhere, is gripped in a brooding, continual, predatory hush and a real, ever-present danger. To imagine a crouched enemy or a hidden treasure is an exercise in enjoyment, a conjured state of aliveness. But when that enemy is too often real and not imagined, when every jag in the stone, every potential hiding place becomes a source of tension, then the game is not so much fun. One cannot walk the corridors of the Underdark with his imagination beside him. To imagine an enemy behind one stone might well blind a person to the very real enemy behind another. To slip into a daydream is to lose that edge of readiness, and in the Underdark, to be unwary is to die. This proved the most difficult transition for me when I went back into those lightless corridors. I had to again become the primal hunter, surviving every moment on that instinctual edge, a state of nervous energy that kept my muscles taut, always ready to spring. Every step of the way, the present was all that mattered, the search for potential hiding places of potential enemies. I could not afford to imagine those enemies. I had to wait for them and watch for them, react to any movements. There are no shadows in the Underdark. There is no room for imagination in the Underdark. It is a place for alertness, but not aliveness. A place with no room for hopes and dreams. I survived a decade alone in the wilds of the Underdark, becoming a hunter in both body and mind, a wild beast of the lightless lands, as cunning and deadly as any who stalk those tunnels. Even then, only the aid of Gwenwyvar kept me sane. Generally, the civilized inhabitants of Deep Earth stick close to their enclaves, venturing forth only in groups to patrol, mine, or trade. In the wilds, heed any signs of recent activity. Predators tend to gaunt well-traveled routes. Scavengers tend to lurk in such regions as well, much as jackals shadow the mighty lions of the Shah. At the same time, tunnels that appear unused usually are unused for good reason. Even passive creatures in the Underdark defend themselves and their territory with deadly ability. As in the world above, monsters tend to leave evidence of their presence. Spores, heat signatures, broken cave formations, and disturbed fungi are all signs to the wary traveler. The Underdark is disturbingly silent for someone accustomed to the murmur of life above. But echoes travel far, alerting all manner of beings. When I was in the academy in Menzoberranzan, I learned early on the riddle of an echo pattern to locate its source, although not always quickly enough. The drow walk lightly and employ boots of elvenkind to mask their passage. We employ a sophisticated language of hand signals to obviate the need for speech in dangerous environs. Spells that generate magical bubbles also suffice. Subterranean patrols, mining expeditions, and trading casters are always equipped to defend themselves. Scouts lurk in the vanguard and rearguard of any such group, on the alert for attacks from any direction, even above and below. Patrol groups usually separate into smaller bands to prevent foes from trapping them in a narrow tunnel or dead-end passage. Mining expeditions are particularly dangerous, for they generate a great deal of noise and must be defensible. Gold and shield dwarves alongside Svifneblin always establish traps and blinds in the surrounding tunnels before excavating, and they keep numerous escape routes ready. In general, explorers from the surface world are wise to confine themselves to the upper Underdark, where a reasonable amount of interaction with the world above still exists. The Middle Underdark is the domain of the main Underdark races, but these mostly see beings from the surface as slaves. The Lower Underdark remains largely unknown. Truly alien societies thrive there, with cultures wholly incomprehensible to surface dwellers. I've spent little time there myself and would not recommend it to anyone else. Of course, I would not recommend you travel into the Underdark at all. While a thin veneer of familiarity cloaks the Underdark enclaves, most are alien, nightmarish cousins of the cities found above, whereas on the surface, civilized races live in settlements of varying sizes. The perils of the Underdark are such that few individuals or groups survive outside a fortress city. The Underdark is more akin to an archipelago in a dead sea than a temperate habitat with bountiful resources. As such, underground beings tend to live close together, founding their cities in the scattered handful of caverns capable of supporting life. There, they fiercely defend themselves against all challenges. Above, cities grow as sentient beings come together for mutual defense, social interaction, or trade. Below, these familiar trappings are twisted by the psychology that the dark labyrinthine tunnels impose. The unending struggle for scarce resources, and racial histories of exile and bitterness. By nature, most Underdark cultures turn on themselves. Veneration, evil powers flourishes, and cruelty reigns unchecked. Most Deep Realm cities are xenophobic enclaves dominated by one or two races that wage genocidal war on their neighbors, practice extensive slave trading, and rule through intolerant monotheistic theocracies. Only an elite minority of Underdark city dwellers dare to travel the tunnels between civilizations, and rare are the civilizations that grow beyond a single city-state for any significant length of time. A wide range of sentient beings have established cities in the Underdark, although the diversity of intelligent life does not yet match that found on the surface. Many established races of the Underdark are not native. Instead, their ancestors were driven underground as punishment for hideous crimes. Others immigrated voluntarily, and a few are believed to have evolved in the endless darkness. Of these races, 9 stand out due to their cultures and interaction with the surface world: aboleths, beholders, cloakers, drow, dwarves, mindflayers, Ixan, Darrow, and Svifneblin. These are by no means the most powerful or even most prolific races in the Underdark. But these have been some of the most prominent or deadly in recent centuries. I will discuss 5 of these, as I have walked the wilds of the Underdark for countless unseen sunrises, and in all the world, never have I met a predatory species as dangerous as those who dwell in the bastions of so-called civilization that have grown up in the depths of the night below. Aboleths are loathsome, evil amphibians resembling plump fish. Their pinkish-tan underbellies conceal a toothless, rubbery mouth. 3 red eyes like slits, protected by bony ridges, sit along a column on the front of their heads. 4 pulsating dark blue orifices line the bottom of their bodies and secrete grey slime that smells like rancid grease. Using natural psionic talents, these monsters can create realistic illusions, complete with audible, olfactory, and other sensory components. In addition, they use psionics to enslave other creatures and communicate telepathically. The origins of the aboleth are lost in the mists of primordial time, but they are believed to have evolved to their present state in the deepest Underdark, perhaps shaped by dark primeval powers long forgotten by other races. Aboleths acquire all their parents' knowledge at birth, plus the knowledge of any intelligent being they consume. Aboleth cities are typically found at the bottom of great subterranean lakes, with such cities composed of great stone towers of differing heights, although most are 1 or 2 stories, with smooth, fluted, spiraling contours that appear evil and alien, yet strangely beautiful. Many walls have arabesque decorations, with what appear to be rubbery tentacle fronds covered with a thin coat of slime. They dwell alone in their towers, with great sloping ramps replacing the curved stairs found in analogous surface structures. Despite having no natural enemies, and are greatly feared by other Underdark races, these piscine monsters view all other intelligent races as either food or slaves to be had. Many aboleth cities employ scum, a race bred from humanoid genetic stock. They serve as beasts of burden and powerful fighting machines. Although their cities only occupy a fraction of any given Underdark lake, aboleth literally dominate all intelligent life in the vicinity, extending their rule throughout a lake and the surrounding caverns. As a result, few other races willingly reside near an aboleth city. Those that do are small and thoroughly dominated. My kin, the drow, also known as dark elves, have skin like polished granite. The drow once lived in the lands of light, alongside our fairer kindred, where we were known to the elves as the Sri Telquesir. The dark elves, a term more properly applied to drow ancestors before their transformation and banishment, were drawn from venerating the Seldarine to the worship of dark powers such as Kaunagar, Vairon, and Lolth. More than 13,000 years ago, the the crown wars raged among the fair folk, and for 3,000 years the elven nations battled one another in a series of 5 great conflicts. At the end of the Fourth Crown War, -10,000 DR, the corrupt dark elven Letheri and others were transformed by Corellon's magic into drow, as directed through the Protector's priests and high mages, and banished to the lightless depths of the Underdark. Drow in current years are found throughout the Upper and Middle Underdark. They favour areas with large ferrous ore deposits and plentiful adamantite and gems. Dark elven cities are typically located in regions with strong magnetic forces, where the rock gives off radiation akin to magical energy known as Pharezres. The Drow are particularly strong in the Moonsea, north and west of the Iltkazar Range, and beneath Kalimshan, all the way up to Icewind Dale. Their pervasive influence is felt throughout the Underdark, and few races challenge their subterranean mastery, due to the dogma of Lolth, the Spider Queen. Most Drow cities are theocratic matriarchies dominated by the clergy of one of the handful of the dark powers venerated by dark elves. In cities that follow the way of Lolth, the dark elven populace is typically ruled by several dozen noble houses, ranked in a strict hierarchy. A small group of elite noble houses form the ruling council, led by the premier of High Priestess of the First House. The war among Drow nobility allows other groups to also achieve some power and influence. Drow wizards, who are usually male, often ally with a noble house. Merchant trading companies receive noble backing. Mercenaries sell their blades, all shifting the balance of power. In a Drow city, where other powers check Lolth's priestesses, they may even assume rule of the city. Within the normality of Drow lie the Driders. These monstrous creatures have the head and torso of a Drow, and the legs and lower body of a giant spider. Lolth creates these monsters from Drow who fail their dark goddess's test. Outcasts from their communities, Driders are usually found alone or in the company of giant spiders on the edge of Drow civilization. As dark elves are the great merchants of the Underdark, the various merchant consortiums are a regular presence along established trade routes of the realms below. Giant subterranean lizards act as beasts of burden, with Drow warriors mounted on riding lizards as outriders. Dark elves reserve their greatest hatred for their surface kin, and even conduct surface raids expressly for the purpose of killing and enslaving elves. As many other races loathe the Drow, the Dark Elves are never without potential enemies. Svirfneblin, also known as Deep Gnomes, are slightly smaller than their rock gnome cousins, but their thin, wiry, gnarled frames are just as strong. Some non-gnome sages claim that the Forgotten Folk, as they are called, are the creation of Netherese arcanists, who were seeking to create a race of perfect servants. Careful scholars note the existence of gnome artifacts long before the appearance of the Forgotten Folk during the Silver Age of Netheril. Deep gnomes have long dwelt in the upper and middle reaches of the Underdark, wherever veins of gemstones, particularly rubies, are found. While deep gnomes have never dominated vast swathes of the Underdark, they are difficult to dislodge and can dwell in close proximity to rival enclaves or mutually hostile races without being driven out or enslaved. These mischievous gnomes are believed to have developed a powerful method of spellcasting over the ages related to rubies and other gems, but details are even scarcer than for dwarven runecasters. Deep gnomes, like dwarves, exploit three-dimensional spaces and rarely think in terms of flat topography. Their burrows tend to be simple structures with a small number of rooms and open windows to the city at large. While some communities favour smooth stone and rectangular construction, others favour abstract designs with rounded corners and undulating patterns in the rock face, not unlike hardened clay. They prize stealth, cleverness, and tenacity as skills that enable them to thrive in the Underdark. As a result, deep gnomes have little liking for the cruel societies prevalent throughout the Underdark, and they harbor hatred for the Drow, Illithids, and Duergar. Nevertheless, they trade information and goods with other races, particularly those with extensive trading networks such as the Drow. The Illithids, also known as Mind Flayers, are a race of amphibious hermaphrodites with powerful psionic abilities. They are greatly feared throughout the Underdark. Like most races long resident in the Underdark, the origins of Mind Flayers are lost to the mists of history. Nevertheless, the tadpole form of their young suggests they may have evolved in briny, subterranean pools before developing the parasitic adult forms they now assume through seromorphosis. Given the amphibious, hermaphroditic origins of Mind Flayers, psionic powers, and quadritentacled maws, some sages speculate that the Illithid may be distantly related to the Aboleth. In any event, the utter hatred Mind Flayers evince for the sun indicates a long tenure within the tunnels of the night below, as does their widespread distribution throughout the upper, middle, and lower reaches of the Underdark. The center of every Mind Flayer community is the Elder Brain. While a few particularly despotic Elder Brains oversee every decision that potentially affects the community, the majority are more passive, serving as consultants, advisors, and living repositories of the community's technology, history, and psionic expertise. They form structured, ordered societies in which every Mind Flayer has its place and purpose. Individuals group themselves into ideological factions known as creeds. These include creatives, who research and create psychic disciplines, items, and technology; awaiters, who favor patient, cohesive planning; possessors, who seek wealth as the avenue to power; tamers, who favor the exercise of military might; thorough biters, who believe insight comes from analyzing failure; nourishers, who treasure their thralls above all else; abysmal, who gain power by inducing fear in thrall races; influencers, who unearth secrets and sway opinions indirectly; darkeners, who labor to extinguish the sun; gatherers, who seek to reunite the disparate Illithid communities; arisers, who seek to dominate the surface world; venerators, who function as priests of Ilsensign. Members of each creed seek to advance their particular philosophy, which often involves complex plots, psionitally empowered devices, and new psionic devotions and sciences. Representatives from each creed make up an Elder Concord, which assumes important rulership duties. In its role as shepherd of the community, an Elder Brain is privy to every decision made by the Elder Concord, and has the power to change courses of action, cast tie-breaking votes, and veto actions. Illithid architecture in the Underdark is comprised of smooth curving surfaces, carved to resemble brain tissue in bas relief. The carving is overlaid with a continuous line of quality, a writing system based on texture and touch that consists of 4 striated lines, each alternately solid or broken, which Illithids read by running their tentacles along it. As befits their parasitic origins, Mind Flayers are commonly found in damp caverns near larger enclaves of other sentient races on which they prey. Beholders are a race of intelligent, typically evil, hermaphroditic monsters. They appear as large orbs dominated by a central eye and a large, toothy maw with 10 smaller eyes on stalks sprouting from the top of the orb. These monstrosities are believed to hail from the heavens, most likely the wandering star known in some cultures as Hakatha. Their presence in Faerun is believed to date back to Spelljammer crashes a few millennia ago. Successful hives survived by making their way to the Underdark before attempting to dominate the lands above and below. These tyrants are typically found in the upper Underdark, although tales flourish of mutants who flee deep into the earth and establish their own hives in the middle and lower Underdark. One Beholder hive is known to have crashed in the Alamir Mountains and now dominates much of the Underdark east of Kalimshan and south of the Vilhon Reach. A second breed has long been active in eastern Anauroch and the deep realms of the Moonsea region. Beholders of the Underdark typically venerate one or both of two racial deities: the Great Mother, whose portfolio encompasses magic, fertility, and tyranny, and Xemnid, whose areas of control include gases and fogs, obscurement, and deception. Their cities are difficult to recognize from afar, as they are rarely composed of freestanding edifices in large caverns. Rather, beholder hives adapt natural cavern complexes or rifts in the earth with their disintegration ray. Such cities have limited access, typically only one opening large enough to admit a single beholder. Their architecture and layout is constructed vertically to hinder interlopers incapable of aerial movement in tight confines. Vast amphitheaters provide forums to gather, recite stories of victory, and compete in magical or athletic contests. The architecture of such enclaves is dominated by the artistry of stone carving and sculpture, forming alien landscapes scattered with trophies. Many of these trophies are petrified representatives of other races that serve both as artistic displays and ready food stores. Eye tyrants consider all other races, as well as other breeds of beholder and beholder kin, to be lesser creatures who exist only to be enslaved or consumed. They commonly refer to all such beings as meat. Beholders respect more powerful creatures, but only so far as to carefully plan attempts to destroy them. There are cities in the Underdark that even the most seasoned surface dwellers have never heard whispered in a drunken tale or scrawled in the margins of a forgotten map. I have walked the caverns of the lightless lands, and despite its horrors, there are two marvelous unknown cities where knowledge and light has not shone. Shamath, city of dark weavings, is unique among drow cities, a city ruled by wizards, where the priestesses of Lolth are shunted into lesser roles. Once a traditional city of the Spider Queen, ruled by matron mothers in accordance with the way of Lolth, Shamath evolved into the preeminent market in all Faerun for enchanted artifacts, spell tomes, and other magical workings. Despite tales of artifacts and relics piled high to be sold for a relative pittance, only an elite roster of surface-dwelling wizards or merchants even know of Shamath's general location, deep beneath the far hills, some 30 miles south of Darkhold. Even fewer have wandered amid the stalls of the fabled Dark Weavings Bazaar. The city is primarily inhabited by drow and their slaves, dwarves, goblins, orcs, and extraplanar creatures, although small groups of emissaries from the city's numerous trading partners comprise a permanent, if rotating, minority. Occasional humans roam, whether members of the Arcane Brotherhood, Red Wizards of Thay, or free-willed lichers. But most visiting wizards are Underdark dwellers, including aboleths, beholder mages, drow wizards, illithir lichers, and even the rare Faerim. The city is the most cosmopolitan Underdark settlement, a well-regarded trading partner with strong ties everywhere within the lightless lands. The city of Dark Weavings is the product of 6,000 years of history, an accident of geography, and a dose of luck. It was established in -4973 DR by the Lolth-worshipping drow of House Shamath. For nearly 2,000 years after the city's founding, the drow of Shamath dwelt in accordance with the way of Lolth. The defining event was the collapse of its most precious resource, Faerzres. The unexplained fluctuations was spoken about for 5 years after it was first detected, and as the city was on the brink of collapse and anarchy. The imbalance of skilled wizards caused a notable shift in the governmental power and an increase in the stature of wizards, notably male, and a decrease in the number of Lolth's priestesses. As the scope of the disaster became apparent, the wizards initiated wave after wave of expeditions to plunder Netheril, Ogran, and other lost realms. Lesser mages duplicated every artifact acquired, and more senior sorcerers delved into research and fabrication, initiating a burst of creative output that led to countless new magical creations and incantations. Over time, the role of the noble houses and the matron mothers faded, and true power in the city shifted to those largely responsible for its continued existence, the archmages. Ultul. Even the name sits heavy on the tongue. It is a city spoken of in passing among the deep races, and not often with fondness. The city of tyrants lies deep beneath Anau Rock, 30 miles due west of the Datarig village of Tel Badr, in a bell-shaped cavern with a great, arching roof. Six Streams River, whose chill waters are fed by creeks that merge at Tel Badr, vanishes into the shifting sands before re-emerging as a falling mist in the great cavern of Ultul. The city has been traditionally ruled by a single dominant hive mother, known as the Ocularch, backed by a council of half a dozen hive mothers, known collectively as the Tyrannarchs. In reality, the city is now ruled by a trio of Farim who call themselves the Triumvirate. The same three who conquered the city of tyrants then attacked the ancient spell barrier of the Shan from the beholders they enslaved. Although their efforts failed, the Triumvirate has succeeded in establishing a gateway to the buried realms through which slaves, information, and magical lore are shipped to their kin on the opposite side. In exchange, they receive minor Farim magical workings and lost Netherese artifacts for which those outside have no use. While more than 2,000 true beholders once called Uthal home, the population shrank to 400 in the aftermath of the assault. Of those 400, over 200 chose to become beholder mages against their will, each apprenticed to one of the three Farim rulers. Those who did not align were quickly destroyed, then raised as death tyrants. The environs of the city consist of hundreds of vertical shafts, steep tunnels, and artificial passageways carved by the beholder's disintegrate rays. Most approaches to the city are heavily trapped, first by the beholders and later by their Farim masters. Within the city, one of the Farim known as Findunma is a master of beholder physiology. Through this knowledge, the city has begun an extensive breeding program to create new beholder strains, attempting to mimic the hive mother's ability to create abominations. Within the Underdark, cities can achieve the isolationism that many of the surface cities would love in order to expand their own understandings and reduce threats. I finish this greeting and passage with some final thoughts. Queen Illustrial, Lady of Hope, and I do hope you find your way with the insights I have shared. If you require more, please write again. Your friend and companion, Drizzt Do'Urden. The Underdark, deep earth, the realms below, the night below, the lightless lands. Surface dwellers you may be familiar with refer to the maze of tunnels and caverns beneath cities such as Waterdeep, Neverwinter, and Baldur's Gate by these names. I have heard that other worlds are not nearly as honeycombed with tunnels as the one in which I was born, but I can only speculate as to the reasons why. For eons, earthquakes, volcanoes, and great rivers of water have cleaved caverns and chasms in the bedrock. Creatures such as purple worms, umber hulks, and Zorn burrow tunnels through earth and stone in search of minerals and prey. Beholders disintegrate columns of stone. Dwarves, gnomes, and other races mine for gold, jewels, and other precious treasures. They reroute subterranean rivers and transform the realms through feats of engineering and magic. The weave has undoubtedly played a role in the deep earth, for vast cavern networks suddenly appear from time to time, leaving pockets of underdark radiation, known to the drow as Farazres, in their wake, and races flourish. Remember, Lady of Hope, there are no shadows in the Underdark. There is no room for imagination in the Underdark. It is a place for alertness, but not aliveness, a place with no room for hopes and dreams.